Yeah, I mean, I think that we've also seen a lot of things we've never seen before that can be polarizing, right? I mean, we've seen, the direction where this battle went, for example, Jeremy did a great job of bringing up how there was spirituality brought into this rap battle, but there was also a lot of really dark things, that came out of this rap battle. I think last Friday, if I'm not mistaken, Spotify responded to the petition that came out. What was it called? Pre-action petition. That's right. 1 second applause for pre-action petition. That's a new word, I think, for all of our lexicons. But these are polarizing things right now. So the problem I have with pre-action petitions over a rap battle, for example, is like, what effect does that have as an artist when it comes to engaging in a rap battle? If there's a concern that someone is going to perhaps have to show up to court from a label side or from an artist side, what impact does that have on this fundamental, foundational part of broad hip hop culture? More than that's present in every element, competition. We have 3 artists that are on this in this panel right now. What do you guys think about that?
We're cooked.
1 second applause.
And as much as I sit back and I'm enjoying creating all this content, because it's been a great year for the YouTube, thanks to this battle and all the things that have happened as a domino effect of it. But I highly doubt. I would be I'd be very surprised to see anything of this magnitude in my lifetime again with 2 artists. I don't know how you even get those circumstances together, but the risks are too high. Even when I think about the lawsuit the petition for the lawsuit that Drake has, stake aside, if it feels like he took a gamble that it didn't go his way. It didn't go the way that he planned it to go. And it's always a risk when you put your brand and your reputation up there versus someone else that could tarnish that, especially in rap. So I don't understand. I don't think that we see, in my opinion, I don't know if we see folks who are providing for so many people. They got employees by tens or even the hundreds putting themselves out there like that. And then on top of that, add the extra risk of you actually having to go to court for some of the things that you've said. It makes me think of all of the diss songs throughout history, the No Vaselines and the things that, this could have added another wrinkle too. We're cooked. I'm glad that we got this experience that we had. I'm grateful that it connected so many of us, but I cannot see a world where or this space where this happens again, because the risks are even higher than they were before. If it can happen to Drake, it can happen to any other artist in that position.
I actually don't think it changes anything. I don't think we see anything this magnitude, because, it's like The Godfather when it was like, this has to happen every 10 years. It clears the bad blood, right? If you remember that scene of The Godfather, I think we just seen something so big. We're not going to see anything this huge for a number of years. But I mean, to me, since when have rappers been afraid of court? We just saw the YSL trial. And them trying to really use lyrics against Thug, and rappers are still saying incriminating shit in records. It don't stop. So I don't know, with all due respect to Curtis's position, and I sincerely hope not, I don't think it deters rappers from getting at each other. And then the other thing is, I don't think this actually goes to court. I think, because we're still like I don't think we actually see a trial. I'd be shocked if this actually goes the full length.
Can I ask you one thing on that? Because I hear you. I hope it's not. I want to be wrong on this one. I really want to be wrong on this one. My assumption is that we won't see a time period. We won't see, for the future of the music industry, where I think it's going and where I think these major labels are going, we don't see an artist that is in a position of power like a Kendrick and a Drake in 10 years. I think so much of this is going to be very different than what it is right now. And I wonder if that's not going to be in a more controlled environment, to the point where we do go to the places that we look for battles, the battle rap, culture, the battle rap scenes that are there. Like, are we going to have to go seek it out in different places? On this stage of this magnitude and seeing a thing, like, we're still not even at the Grammys and the Super Bowl yet. And seeing what that ultimately does to a brand, how does a label send one of their artists out there or not quiet one of their artists when rumblings of this happens. The culture's a culture. I'm with you.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is that in this environment as it is, does this play out again?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think they'll be able to stop it. The other thing is, I mean, this has also been brewing for 10 years.
Yeah,
Right?
I was going to chime in
And
on
we go
that
back
part.
to control. Go ahead, Mike. I don't want to steal your point. Go ahead.
No, but I was going to chime in on that part. I think if we're talking about repeating this math equation, we have to be in an environment where there can be an industry-backed rapper that stays at the top for a decade. I don't know if we're ever going to see that again anyway. I think that for the sort of vitriol that ended up coming Drake's way, he had to be on top that long to have pissed that many people off and mess with that many people's girls and all the other stuff that just piles up your enemies year after year after year. And I just don't know if, just even in the state of the industry, I don't know if the foundation is such that another artist gets produced that gets that comes up the ranks and gets established at that echelon and continues on for a decade. And I think that's what kind of has to happen for the sort of battle that we saw this year is like Rob was saying, it took a decade of this bubbling up. And I just don't know if we're even in that same environment anymore.
Elaborate on that if you can, Mike. What do you mean we're not in the same environment?
Well, I just think in general, when I talk about how I feel like this year has been disruptive, and I even point to Drake's lawsuit, pre-lawsuit, all of it, right? What he's trying to push UMG and Spotify to do is be transparent about their practices, and they're not going to want to do that, right? And the more that becomes a risk, the less risk they're going to want to take, right? And I just think that we've all had a very long conversation about streaming being an unsustainable model. I mean, I know Curtis talks about this a lot in his content too. Labels are disappearing. Labels are laying off staff left and right. The record label, the music industry as it stands, I do not think is in a sustainable place. I think it has to be in a sustainable place to create an artist whose legacy lasts the way that Drake's did. That is when things were humming, things were working, they were making enough money at that scale. I think the industry right now is in a state of flux and trying to figure out what the next steps are. And in that, I don't know that when it's reconstituted, it's in the same space where it's trying to set up any artist to have the legacy or have the career and catalog that Drake had. I don't know if it's going to reconstitute itself and operate in that same fashion.
And I don't know if that's not because, to me, I agree with you on that part, but I think because they don't want to break bread with artists. I mean, you see in Harper's Bazaar, there was just a piece I saw Demizza talking about it on his IG of how they're backing the AI produced tracks and sneaking them into playlists. So I don't know that they're going to build up another career like a Drake, like a Taylor Swift, like a wherever. It's simply because of the market share. It was like, oh, we can kind of make music that we don't have to actually pay rights out to and keep it as this background noise instead of actually creating superstars that, I think it's more geared towards that is where the labels are headed.
Hey, Rob, I was going to just to clarify that. What you talking about right there with the PFC program, the Big Fit Content program, we're not even talking about AI yet with that. They're talking about folks like, I don't know if you ever heard of Johan Rohr. Oh,
so they're just syncing? They're just hiring people to make music that work for hire?
Since 2016, they've had these artists that they brought music for hire, but it's not even for long term. It's just a matter of you come in as this artist and they take your what you do. They have their own transaction, and then they give, for instance, Johan Rohr, who's this musician from Sweden, had 650 aliases all across the board on Spotify. Now what they're doing is they're stuffing their own playlist, their editorial playlist, instead of adding that independent artist or that working musician. They're stuffing their own playlist because they make that money and recycle that because they forego, the musicians forego royalty. Yeah, so we're not even in the AI, and they've been.
But imagine what happens when the AI comes.
And that's my point. And Open Mic, he hammered that home, in that if that's the direction things going, we may possibly get an AI battle before we get another head to head between human beings, because it's like my machine, I know that sounds crazy, but my machine learning program is a lot smarter than yours over there. Let's put it to the test. And because ultimately that's what it's going to be. Even those musicians that forego their royalty rights, they'll be replaced because the machine learning system is now learning their process, and they'll be able to just auto generate this stuff. AI music. So not to stray it too much, but that's what I'm saying. Do we ever have artists that are in a position of power to shift things? Because, although we look at that and we say, okay, Drake obviously lost this battle, there's a lot of folks that lost money as a domino effect of that. Folks that we'll probably never even mention or even hear of. I imagine like it's been a lot of good, but then there's also been a lot of folks who were like, I don't know what my job's going to look like in 2025. Add on top of that, the stuff not dealing with the battle, just the direction that the music industry is going and all the layoffs. It was risky this year. It's going to be even riskier moving forward every year after this.
Fantano, can you see yourself reviewing an AI album? Does that make a difference? Like, is it dope? Does dope live in the same scale when it's not a real person making it?
No, I'd probably shit on an AI album pretty quickly. I have already shat on AI music. I mean, yeah, it's a disappointing concept. I mean, I don't even see like, for the most part, as of right now, all I can sort of foresee in the immediate future for AI is like what Rob and Curtis were talking about, like, and it's not even labels, it's Spotify itself for the most part that's cutting out the labels in order to put the money back into their pocket by taking all this music and sort of sneaking it into their platform to make an extra buck or two, because there's no artist to pay, there's no rights to pay, there's no royalty, there's no anything. It just goes back into their pocket. I mean, they're doing that to rip off artists. They are, as you guys probably already know, they sort of demonetized every artist that doesn't sort of like, get like 1,000 hits minimum on a song within a given year, which is saving them millions and millions of dollars every year. I think as of right now, it's really Spotify and the streaming platforms that are like becoming this homogenization channel that's going to sort of like filter everything through this like kind of same bland lens and kind of hollow and sort of silo people into, their little algorithmic sort of little recipes that they give them that sort of like, put people on a certain track to be into a certain thing. And it's going to turn into, in my opinion, like the 2000s all over again, with like Viacom and Clear Channel buying up all the radio stations and essentially shoving down people's throats like what was hot and what was not through those platforms. I think we're going to reach that point again because of like the amount of saturation and influence that the streaming platforms are beginning to have on like what is popular and what's not in music. And what's like kind of even more devious about it is like, I feel like back in the day with the radio stations, because you had so little perceived control over what was going on because it was music being played for you, I think people sort of understood that, there was sort of like a top-down kind of dictation thing going on musically. Whereas like for a lot of people, Spotify gives them the illusion of choice. Most people go into Spotify thinking like, yeah, I'm deciding what music I'm going to listen to on my own terms and without even thinking about like, how is this deciding what song it's playing next or what music it's showing me when I log into the front page and like, people aren't really sort of like aware fully of like how much influence what platform they're using kind of inspires their music choices every day. And until people kind of gain that awareness, I think they're going to be kind of like herded like cattle into the slaughterhouse and kind of pushed into, frankly, listening to a bunch of algorithmic slop, maybe even AI slop that's essentially meaningless, and sort of have their potential taste and culture ripped away from them because they're kind of being, again, herded into choices that they're not fully aware of.
Sky, Jeremy, you guys got anything to add to this?
I'm just going to keep on being Mr. Pollyanna over here. And like, what just happened? What was this year? I mean, am I wrong that it was hard to pick the top 5 rap albums of the year? It was not hard the year before, or the year before, or the year before. Whatever's happening, it sucks. But how much less money can artists possibly make than they are already making, and they're still making this much great art? I mean, I see it, and I'm scared of the AI stuff as well, but it seems like people aren't really buying it, right? Like there was that AI rapper, right? That was, I watched at least 3 of you talk about that on your channels at some point, and like it came and went, and there'll be another one, and like the whole world is unified around Kendrick Lamar. Like if you had to say, like, what if we could just pick one person for everybody to listen to and care about out of all of hip hop, that's the name we would all come up with. That's what we would say, like, what can save us? So I mean, like, maybe, you know, I'm a Terminator 2 scared the hell out of me, you know, when I was 14 years old, and I'm positive we're headed right into Skynet just like the rest of you, but like I don't know. It's hard to feel like we're cooked when things have been just so good this year, and I guess they could turn south, but I don't know. So I'll keep on being Mr. Brightside over here.
Okay.
It's interesting because the thing about the duality is, right, like the Spotify thing and the lawsuit with Drake. I think some things will get exposed with that, of how, if they do go through with that pre-action, of how you are able to manipulate, like Fantano said, manipulate choice, but manipulate what we're all listening to. The Spotify radio, I let that play a lot. And so if they buy that package where they're putting the song on extra playlists and they're taking less royalties, I'm probably consuming that a lot. But I think that one of the best things to come out of this year was seeing the possibility of ownership and the willingness of fans and super fans to buy into ownership for someone they care about. For example, J. Cole, in my opinion, did one of the dopest things all year with his Even partnership and his inevitable release and his Forest Hills Drive bonus tracks. So Cole, what he did was, yes, there's going to be people that say, I'm not paying to listen to J. Cole talk. Cool. You're not the audience. The audience is, who are the 10,000 people or the 1,000 people or the 100,000 people, depending on the size artist you are, that are willing to invest in you and your brand and you as a person. I paid $10 in an instant for J. Cole, and he doesn't need my $10, but I'm wanting that content from him because I've followed the journey for 10 years. Now, when he built that audience, built that community, and he dropped Forest Hills Drive, 8 bonus tracks on Even, which is, shout out to La Russell, who has a partnership with them, bringing ownership to artists. He dropped 8 songs on Even for purchase, $10. He charted at number 3, I believe. Someone can pull up the numbers. He charted because of how much value those streams were put into the purchase. So I think there's a lot of artists who are going to follow that model where, yeah, you can have it on streaming, but there's going to be exclusivity where building our audience, building fan bases, taking some power away from the labels, putting it in your own hands. And those 1,000 people that fuck with you, or the 10,000 people that fuck with you, are going to keep lifting you up into the future. So I'm actually excited to see more artists do that in the future.
Justin Hunte is here, it's all happening. Justin Hunte is here, it's all happening. The mathematical breakdown of this mighty game of rap we in. It's boom happening. Systematical culture views that's radical, it's all happening. Shaking hands and dapping it. Life through the lens of hip hop, from trip hop to yes, y'all, you don't stop, you don't stop. Justin Hunte is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening. Justin Hunte is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening.